Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the show. I'll be truthful. I'll be perfectly honest here. Nothing bad's happened. Jon is here. But Jon and Nige are in the back room sorting out some audio issues. So I've been sent to the stage to talk. Yeah, they're out the back shagging. Well, Jon's back here. I can add Jon to the stage just say hello, but I won't. Now, what I would like to discuss quickly before Nige gets in is a wrap party for the 5.5-hour show on Savon's channel earlier on. That was fun. I'd like to know what you guys thought. I thought Tyler was a lovely guy. I thought he had a lot of confidence, a lot of followers, a lot of people in the chat. It's a bit unsettling to start with, the fact that there were so many people that I didn't know, but it was like going to school for the first day. It was like a new school arriving on a bus into our school. Did you ever have that when you had like a school exchange or anything like that? Is Jake's internet stuttering, or is that my internet? Does anyone else have issues with me? Let me know your thoughts. No, is it me? Blimey, I thought I was doing okay. Oh, well, this is good. All right, well, we can talk about cocks and balls if you like. Hopefully that won't work. Can you tell me, is it stuttering? Is it this? Or is it crackly? Is it stuttering? Okay, well, hopefully when Jon comes back on, we'll be able to sort it out. Here he comes. All right, let's have a look. Let's see. There's all of us. Hello, Jon.
It might be that you've changed it to the 4K. I'm just trying to add Nigel in. Oh, I did add Nigel in. I don't know where he's gone now. Hey, there we go.
Where's my video?
Nigel, can you hear us now? Nigel, can you hear us now?
Was it working a minute ago?
We can't talk in the back.
We
can hear you, Nigel.
Nigel, you just heard a rumbling. This is a peek behind the curtain of tip of the spear presenting skills. Jon, I was just talking to the guys. It's got to be 4K. Video stuttery, audio is fine.
Yeah, it's reduce it to 1080.
Okay, 1080. There we go. It's the glare. All right, I'll turn it down, shall I? Let me know if that's better. Is that better? Setting the mood. Is that better? Yeah, the show earlier, Jon, was enlightening. Do you know what? It's a bonding experience for the Seven Easters.
I was quite disappointed that I never got to witness it.
Yeah, it was quite fun. Do you know what? He had a lot of confidence and he had a lot of chill.
Nice
Remove
that. Right, add this one to the stage.
Can you hear us, Nigel?
Hello.
Here we go.
Oh, here we go.
You hear us now?
I've gone to the phone, yeah.
There we go.
Big Nige in the house.
Right, we were just talking about.
You didn't.
Here.
The elderly.
You're fine. You're showing your age, Nigel. That's all. But you're fitter than both of us. That's all that matters.
Technology. I've always wanted to do a podcast.
Is this your first one?
Yeah, first and last, I think. Yeah.
Jake, did you change your the 4K?
Yeah.
Aye, there we
just
go.
Changed it. That's all right. That's fine. Nigel, thank you very much for coming on. I'll admit, although I have a keen interest in HYROX, and I tried buying a ticket with Jon last week for London, and I coach some sessions. We were an affiliate on the island where I live. Jon's exposure to HYROX and his knowledge is a lot better than mine. I think Jon's done 7 or 8 himself. So you'll have to excuse the ignorance on my part. 6?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Is that it?
Nigel's been on the podium more than I've done races.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the HYROXy question specific to Jon, if that's all right, because he knows more about it than I do. However, you'll have to excuse some of the ignorant questions from myself. I'm very, very interested in hearing about your story and the sport, the event. But Jon's going to be more of the man in the know about all of this. But I do have a question that I like to ask at the beginning of each of our shows, if you don't mind. And it's, what is your earliest memory?
It's probably not my earliest memory, but an early memory, and this dates me, is I was born and bred in Nottingham, and I remember watching Trevor Francis heading the European Cup winning goal against Malmo, where I was sat in the family house with me. I know where I could just picture it all, and that's about 10. So I will have earlier memories than that, but that's the dominant. When I think back to my early years, that's what I remember, and I just thought that happened. I thought that happened every year, but as today's results show, it's never happened since. But yeah, that's my earliest memory. Yeah.
Oh, what an amazing memory to have, eh? What a place to have been.
Yeah, it was a bit wasted on me at the time because, like I say, I just thought that was what Forest did, and that's what you supported the team, and they just kept winning the European Cup. But it's alas, nothing since.
Yeah, are you still a Forest fan, Nigel?
Yeah. They lost today, so it's been a long, hard struggle ever since that point. Really, it sort of peaked too early in my life. I've never seen them do anything since. But yeah, I was a big football fan and a big Forest fan at that time. Yeah.
Right. And did you ever play yourself?
I was football mad up till about early teens, I suppose. But I went to a rugby kind of school from 11 onwards. So football. I wish I'd gone to a football school, because football was, me and my brother used to be kicking the football around the streets, out playing on the park till we get dragged back in. Just loved it, never without a football. So that was the early years, and then it turned to rugby after that.
Right.
Which I enjoyed, but I never quite loved as much as the football. So it's always been there, but I never played it properly thereafter, really.
Right. And what position did you play in rugby?
I was a centre, outside centre. I played Union and League, and enjoyed it, but it was a bit of a weight training kind of sprinter. So I liked scoring tries and putting a few tackles in, and I actually preferred League to Union in some ways for that regards. But played both, enjoyed them both, and that was me. I was a non-endurance, pure sprint, weight training kind of guy. That was what I was for me. Right. To about the age of 30, I suppose.
Yeah.
Is that what got you into weight training, was rugby then?
Yes, very similar. I was listening to one of your podcasts, and Jake said he went with his dad and got a weights bench at a very young age. Yeah, I did exactly the same thing with my dad. I remember getting this must have been when I was about 11 or 12, getting a second-hand weights bench off some geezer, bringing it back in the car, and that went with me everywhere. That when we lived in a flat, it was in the basement. I used to go down, put the old cassette on, put the Rocky soundtrack on, and just train weights and just do like what would be a bro session. Did that for years, and that went with me to garden sheds, and that set me up for. That's 42 years ago, and that set me up for training regularly pretty much ever since. And that was my first love, and that weight training went and hand in hand with the rugby. And to this day, if you said to me, you've got one session to do before you die, it would be I'd be picking up a dumbbell and a barbell, and not doing it like you powerlifters, but in my own little world, just enjoying lifting weights and doing a row session. That would be it.
Yeah.
So that's always
So that's obviously what training looked like back then. Was there any like certain figures, like athletes or role models, like anything that that's, I would say, inspired or like influenced the path that you then end up taking? Because obviously training looks very different today than what it did 40 years ago for you.
Yeah, well, I did the rugby thing and a bit of success at that. And then when I stopped playing rugby at 30, that's when I started to. I was still training at the gym, regularly go to the gym. I started to get into indoor rowing a bit. But it was all kind of random stuff. It was just whoever. I'd always train with certain people, and whatever they started doing or whatever the trend was, there was never. I always felt like I was looking for what everyone calls hybrid training and hybrid. I was doing that years ago without realizing it, but there was no CrossFit didn't exist. There was nothing to directly go into. So when I finished rugby, I was just getting fit and doing stuff and got into the indoor rowing. And then my mate started training for a half marathon who I used to weight train with. And I thought he was stupid. It was the Great North Run. And I was like, what are you doing that for? What are you doing that for? And he badgered me up at the gym to basically do a run with him one day. And it killed me. I couldn't keep up with it. I used to beat him at everything else. And he thought it was hilarious. And it was an 8-mile run. I had to stop about 4 times. Back had seized up. Feet were killing me. And that was the first point I thought about endurance, really. I thought, right, I'm either never running again or I'm going to take it seriously. So that flips me into trying running and going, right, he's never going to beat me again. And I started training. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. Overtrained, just ran myself to death. But eventually turned myself into a bit of a runner. So that was a switch from rugby weight trainer with I had a 145 bench press at one point.
Nice.
It wouldn't be nothing to you guys. It was for a bloke who went on to do a 34-minute 10K. I was quite an all-rounder without really.
Yeah.
So that was
that's bigger than my bench has ever been.
That was, it's 25 years historic, but it counts.
So Nigel, that was.
So I didn't really. I didn't
that
answer
was
your question
was
about
that mid-90s.
Ooh, yeah, I suppose. Yeah, mid-90s would be. I was in the police. I joined the police in '93, so I was still rugbying then. And then about when I was, not long after I was in mid-30s, probably I started to get into running and shift into more of an endurance side of things.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that because you're around about, how old are you, Nigel? 53-ish. Is that what you said?
55.
55. Right. I've got a couple of mates in their 50s. One's slightly younger. So one's 57. He's in CrossFit. He's a very good athlete. He missed out on the games last year by a couple of handstand push-ups. And I've got another mate, Lee, who's a little bit younger. He's 53. So he's about just under you. He had a similar thing where he's a rugby lad, went into endurance. He's a PT and a coach. And in the 90s, late 90s, along with being an Ibiza dancer, he tried to find this hybrid sort of training, like you've said. Interesting that he's from a background in similar to yourself, but I don't know if you're a dancer in Ibiza or not. But he stumbled across Puma. Funny enough, sponsored a couple of these events. And they were what I would class as very, very close to what CrossFit do now. They were functional fitness events in a big halls. They had rowers out. It would be a 2K. Then you'd go over and do a bit of weight training, and it would be competitions like functional fitness across with a bit of athletics. And it's interesting that Puma were involved back then, and now obviously fast forwards to your event, they're obviously massively involved. But yeah.
It seems so obvious now that something like that should have existed. I remember that the gym would run competitions, and they might be the fittest in the part of Manchester I was in and stuff like that. But there was definitely nothing that people were like training for, or you were either a runner or a weight trainer. There was nothing really that brought everything together. And you think, well, it's obvious, really. But until CrossFit kicked in, certainly at my side, there was nothing apart from circuit training and that kind of thing, which it's the same but different. But it wasn't competitive sport as it was.
How old were you when you joined the police? Did you say you were in your 20s?
Yeah, early 20s. I'd be.
So did you do? Obviously, you have to do running when you're doing the police fitness, do you? How did you get on then then not run until your 30s?
I mean, even as a kid during rugby training, sometimes I would do a bit of distance running, and I was always like, if we had cross-country races at school, athletics at school, I was always like, I was a sporty kid. I was always decent, but there would always be proper runners that were better than me, and police fitness tests and stuff like that. I like the sport, and I was always into fitness, so I'd always do all right. But it wasn't. I used to consider running to be. It would affect my sprinting, and it would drain my strength. So if we did it pre-season at rugby, running around the pitch, even though it'd only be for 20, 25 minutes, I'd be like, "Why am I doing this? I'm a sprinter. This is going to ruin me," type thing. So I never loved it, and I also had a negative sort of connotation with it until things switched. But yeah, I was okay. I'm not a naturally brilliant runner. I'm not naturally brilliant at anything. I just work hard and get okay at stuff. But yeah, a good runners a lot. Even at school was a lot. You could tell they were proper runners, and I was just a sporty guy, sort of like plodding along a bit behind them.
How deep did you go into the world of running? Did you ever do any ultras, or what was like?
I do mainly. I sort of joined Sale Harris, so we'd do. When I was just thrashing myself, I just used to literally go on a treadmill for an hour, 3 times a week, and try and run as far as I could, as hard as I could. It was just brutally. These are the mistakes I've made that I try and pass on to them. You just kill yourself and just try and beat what you did last time every time you go out, which works to a degree, and then just destroys you, and you have to go back to doing it properly. So when I went to an athletics club, started training properly, lots of easy, some moderate, some hard, and that's when things started to kick on. So I do 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and mountain marathons. The mountain marathons mainly as part of there'd be a police team of 3 or 4 of us. They had one in Snowdonia, and stuff like that. And when I moved up here to the islands, I would run in the mountains and the hills as well. But yeah, predominantly road stuff, I'd say. When I did get into it, which I mean, there was no super shoes there, or no, you were wearing your race shoes, and they were just stripped out lightweight shoes. That would probably why I've got a few long-term injuries from the running days. But yeah, I did get properly into running for a good few years.
Okay. Yeah, my dad was a runner, and but he was, half my body weight, and he's amazed by the shoes that we have, now, and he's in his 70s, and they would literally just, he'd be running in Sambas and stuff, just start running in Adidas Sambas, and he'd be doing half marathons, and then it's that would absolutely destroy anyone nowadays. But it's mental. He would go out and run a half marathon in a pair of Sambas, crazy.
Yeah. It's a lot cheaper. You're paying £200, £300 for a set of trainers you can use about three times an hour, right?
Yeah.
Man. Sorry, Jake, are you going to say something?
No. I was going to ask about you, if you don't mind, about your profession as a copper. Was that in Nottingham you were based?
No, I sort of wanted to get away, so I ended up applying for London and Manchester, and got in at Manchester. So I did basically half my service in Manchester, and then moved up to the Highlands of Scotland for pretty much the second half of it. So it's quite a difference between the two. But yeah, it almost worked out 50-50, which is very different.
Okay. Yeah. Do you know what? So I used to own an affiliate, a CrossFit affiliate down out on the Greater London area. And I had a lot of coppers that were members at the gyms, and I used to hear about, you know, not everything, but obviously they were coming from a night shift or having, you know, been to a case or whatever. And 3 years ago, I moved to the Isle of Man, where I'm at now. And again, we've got a lot of coppers that come to the gyms, and the type of stuff they have to deal with, I'm not taking away from the hard work they do, but it's a slightly different sort of take on a slightly different set of issues they've got. So I can imagine moving from Manchester to Highlands is a little bit different. Not so much, not so less challenging, just you know, in a different style of policing.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
In some ways more.
I can imagine that the Isle of Man. Sorry, Nigel.
I was just saying it is very different, and it's more challenging in a way because you come up here and you're suddenly covering areas the size of Yorkshire, and there's about 2 coppers covering the whole lot. Whereas in Manchester, if you want help or you're in trouble, there's about 600 area coppers who can come and help you out. So very, very different law and everything. So it was very unnerving to start again, basically.
And have you retired now, Nigel, from the forces?
Yeah. I was luckily I retired 5 years ago, which is when I started to sort of like get involved in almost by accident into the coaching side of things, just to help a few people out. And so 5 years I've been retired now. Yeah.
Lovely. And in our notes, Jon said that you were you're aware of Comp Train, I guess, as Ben Bergeron. Were you involved with CrossFit at all? Was it anything that you kind of dabbled with first?
Yeah. As I did after I did my running, and then went into cycling, and then it was CrossFit next, I think. So I was into me probably mid-40s and did CrossFit for a good maybe 5 years. Really, I only really stopped when lockdown kicked in and I started to kit out my garage and train at home. So I enjoyed the CrossFit side of it. It was a breath of fresh air in terms of bringing everything together that I kind of was looking for. I see a few things that training wise I would either add to again or miss out, but the CrossFit was a bit of a game changer for everyone, wasn't it?
When you walked in there,
exactly.
Sorry, Jake. I was going to say, when you walked into the affiliate, you'd been searching for that, like that hybrid thing. Did you think, oh, this is it? Or was it?
It was basically, I thought this is I've been looking for this kind of thing all the time, because when I was running, I was thinking, if there was the runners that beat me, if we were to do some gym stuff, I'd be able to beat them. And the ones that could beat me in the gym, if we were to go running, I could beat that. So it nearly brought it all together. Nearly. It was a bit. I wasn't so keen on the Olympic side of things, and looking back on it, I think I wish for me, just me, the way I was, I'd just done more basic strength and fitness as opposed to spending years trying to learn how to snatch and do stuff like that. And I wish I'd done a bit more base aerobic stuff around it all to help me with the CrossFit, I think, and to help with that. But it was certainly a huge jump forward and made you realize what kind of things are possible, because people just weren't training like that before it came along, were they? They were just going to the gym and going on a running machine and doing whatever. The thought of like combining rope climbs and box jumps and whatever all together was it's like a real breath of fresh air.
And we're not here to talk about kind of CrossFit per se, but as it's part of your journey, I think what CrossFit has done, we've talked about this quite a few times recently, is it kind of gave people a little bit of a stepping stone towards specialities or events that they do enjoy and can train for. So you get a lot of people coming to the affiliates and then find weightlifting, you know, especially the younger people, and they specialize. They realize they enjoy it, they love it, they join the barbell class on a Saturday, and then they carry on and pursue that. You get a lot of people that into the powerlifting now. So powerlifting's had a massive boom, whether or not they'll admit it or not. British weightlifting have definitely admitted this. The events are packing out. The amount of people taking up lifting now is through the roof. It's the last 10 years. And what we found, and yeah, what I've definitely found is we became a HYROX affiliate about 1.5 years ago, where I am. And the uptake of HYROX from CrossFitters that have remained CrossFitters, but partake in HYROX events to test their fitness and what they do, and also expose the areas of their fitness that they haven't developed. And I think what it's done, I don't know, you said it was about 2015, 16 until about 2020 you were doing CrossFit. Is that about right?
Yeah, it would be, yeah, it'd be those years, yeah.
So, I mean, what a period that was for CrossFit, you know? But I think what it's done, a lot of CrossFit gyms have had to face the hard truth that they don't necessarily focus on the first couple of steps of CrossFit, which is nutrition and their metcon, metabolic conditioning. A lot of them jump up, and it's interesting to hear you say about the fact that you're kind of trying to do, you know, the Olympic lifts and the higher skill bases without concentrating on that aerobic base, because if done effectively and properly at the affiliates, that should be the first thing. You know, and I was very fortunate when I started CrossFit in 2020, early 2012. My gym that I went to was all about the nutrition and the metcon. For the first couple of years I was there, it was, you know, I became really, really, really good with an aerobic base and gradually build that up. And I think a lot of gyms are getting exposed now for the fact that they've kind of avoided that, and they've allowed people to just jump up and go straight to the tip of the spear. So it's really interesting that you say that, because it's very, very common anecdote that we're finding. But also, like you said, the style of event that you've gone into now, we'll come onto that, is within the realms of CrossFit, and it's just an expression of what we do at the affiliate as well. So it's lovely to see. Yeah. Anyway, back to you, Nigel. Sorry. So HYROX, when did you first hear or experience HYROX?
They were fairly close together. So I would say 3 years ago, or maybe 4 seasons ago, that would be with HYROX. The first one, I heard about it about 11 weeks before I did the first one I did, which was in London. So I think that would have been 4 seasons ago. So it was fairly new. I certainly wasn't looking at competing. I was quite happy training in my gym. Didn't want, it was like, that's me done. I trained for health and nothing else. And it was starting to crop up on socials and stuff, but it was just post-COVID as well. So I think it all died down, and then it was just starting to ramp up again.
Yeah.
And I started to see, I saw a YouTuber who was about my kind of age. He'd done one in Manchester, and I thought, by this time I got a skier in the garage, I got a rower in the garage. I was doing I'd done wall balls before, and I was like, I can't give myself an honest reason why I wouldn't do this. So with 11 weeks to go, the only thing I wasn't doing was running, because I was injured from the running. I've got like permanent injuries from running previously. So I was like, that might be a bit dodgy, but I did with very little running. 11 weeks later, I was on the start line. So yeah, it's kind of escalated quickly and then I went down there. It was the first probably big one that the UK had seen where it had really taken off. And I thought, this is just going to get huge. Like, there's no way this isn't going to be a success. We did the event, and it just blew you away, really. And
where was that, in London, Nigel?
Yeah, that was London XL, I think. So yeah. I don't know what year that would be, but it was definitely 4 seasons ago, because it was just before the end of their season, because the World Championships were in Las Vegas. And there've been a few places since. I had a quick decision to make whether I was going to go to it or not, and I know I had 2 weeks to make my mind up, and I decided not to. But yeah, that was the first one.
And did you have to queue for 3 hours with 15,000 people in front of you to get those tickets?
Not back then, you didn't.
No, you didn't. It it was a busy one, but it was not. It was not a sellout in 10 seconds and all that malarkey. No, it was. You could get a ticket if you wanted. You just turned up.
Right.
I forget. I know in the Open there was 400 people in it, whereas now I think what they're doing 10,000 a weekend or something like that. So
yeah, that's 400 people.
400, like that was one of the. That's just in the men's Open, so there would be perhaps a couple of thousand over the weekend, but it wasn't the 10,000 jobbies that they're doing now virtually everywhere.
Yeah.
So it was just right at the start of it, rocketing.
Yeah.
Like thinking of that, because you've obviously been since 2020, 2020 or 2021. Like what kind of like things do you think? What's the biggest key changes that you've noticed going to events for the last 4+ years now?
In terms of the actual events themselves.
Yeah, or anything about it. Like you can talk about like training techniques, like how strategies have shifted with the competitors, the coaching.
The number of people running around holding the camera doing it.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, certainly the events themselves. I mean, they have got bigger and they've added to it with the Thunderdome and all the seating areas around the ball balls, etc. The prizes they give and whatever they've diminished. You used to get a nice hoodie and stuff with winner on it and a free hat, and now that's just skimped down to you get that flag thing. So they're definitely the old spending in and the reward, and the events got bigger. So the event
which
itself,
is insane to think, because how much more money's coming into it now.
Well, I watched a business program about them. I mean, it's a it's a £1 billion kind of industry almost. I forget the actual figures they put on it, but I'm sure it was a basic figure of like £90 million a year they're making off it. Albeit they've got to pay some out because they franchise some of it, etc., etc. But it's huge, yeah. But the actual, there was a better post-race sort of like zone and facilities and stuff. That's kind of declined a bit, and prices have declined. But yeah, the actual event has just grown, and it's a better experience. I still think it's a good experience. It's a bit too busy, the UK ones, I find, for spectating and stuff, depending on what event you're watching. But generally, anyone who goes to them is blown away and normally goes back for more, just off the atmosphere alone. But in terms of the training side of it, like I say, I did very little HYROX training for my first one, very little running for my first one, and the training that was, I went with one of the emerging top guys, who's now one of the top guys, like James Kelly. I latched on with him fairly early on, and it was all about it's not a running race, it's a compromised running race. He would only do like 2 run sessions a week. The rest would all be compromised. It would all be HYROX type stuff. It would all be HYROX type workouts, and sort of like flying into them at 100 miles an hour each week. That's definitely changed now. The top coaches, the top athletes, everybody's preaching, come away from doing the specifics, get fit, get strong, build your running up, and then 6 weeks out from a race, start to get more specific, start to get HYROXy, and then start doing a few HYROX workouts. So it's completely changed for a lot of people. The top coaches, or some of the best coaches, have always preached that way, but a lot of the masses and a lot of even the Elite 15 have changed the way they think and train. And the Zone 2, the threshold training, is all now what all the top guys are kind of doing. And they're not doing simulations and HYROX workouts on the weekly, or certainly not on the daily, and they'll zoom in on that like 4 weeks out from a race.
And Nigel, the question that I've got, and this, I'm coming at this with a little bit of an ulterior motive, so excuse me. Top guys. Now, the difference between CrossFit and HYROX here is that it's a prescribed event, so you know what you're getting in for.
Yeah.
Do the pros train differently than the amateurs? So should there be a variance, or is it the same kind but the degree is different? Should it be the same, or should the pros train differently from the regular people?
I certainly, the way I do it with myself and the people who I coach, we do similar, but obviously make it fit for whatever our circumstances are. So we're not doing the volume or the thing, but the basic principles, the basic the way I coach, and I like to set out my training week for me and the people that I help, is we always have some kind of fitness element to it, some aerobic element to it, whether it's running on the ergs or whatever. That's on every session, along with some strength, along with something that will use that strength, or a bit of CrossFit type, GPP type fitness. And that's pretty much, if you delve through the weeds and what the top coaches are saying and how the elites train, they're doing exactly the same. They'll do more volume. They'll be doing it for more hours a day. They'll be doing it faster pace. Their longer runs will be longer. The running volume for the week will be longer. If I'm training a 65-year-old or myself at 55 or a 27-year-old beginner runner, same principles I will slot into the week, and I will go with that, because that's what I've found to be effective. So yeah, it only differs by, I always phrase this wrongly, but whatever you said in your speech there, that's what I think.
Yeah, by degree, not kind. So originally that was Glassman's take on what CrossFit should be. So because it was supposed to be linear. It's supposed to just increase by degree, not kind. So you've got an 85-year-old doing a high squat to a box, and you've got a 17-year-old weightlifter being able to snatch or front squat really heavy. It's by degree, not kind. And somewhere along the way, what the elite CrossFitters are doing now isn't linear. It's not what GPP, it's not what the affiliates are doing, not what us regular folks are doing. What's interesting there is because it's constantly varied. So a CrossFit event, you never know what you're going to get into. Whereas HYROX, it is linear. It can always be linear. The intensity and the volume, therefore, is the variable there. And it can, ironically, it can stick to by degree, not kind, more so than the sport of CrossFit.
Yeah, it's going to be volume, like
absolutely.
The pros. Like the Elite 15 have just they're just doing everything but more volume of it.
Yeah. Fundamentally, it's not hard. You need to be really aerobically fit. You need to have a certain amount of strength. You need to be able to combine the two, which is where your GPP comes in. And then you need to work on your skills and your efficiency at the movements. And that applies no matter who you are, whether you're James Kelly or you're me at 55. You can all fit that in. If you're a beginner runner, you'll only be doing 5-10 minute runs once, twice a week. You'll be doing some on the ergs, but it'll all be aerobic and base building, which Ronkovic doing whatever he does, an hour-long run or whatever. Everybody's doing the same
Nigel,
principles, sorry. Yeah.
You carry on.
I was going to say, though, and those principles aren't. I don't particularly see it as training for HYROX or training for DECA or anything. That's just good all-round training for health or anything. The competitive side of it just comes in as you zoom in onto whatever you want to do. But I go off the basis that if you're fit, you can then do anything with that fitness, whether that's because I'm not an official HYROX coach, but I just train general fitness and strength. And then my people and myself, we then, at 6 weeks notice, you could drop into a half marathon, you could drop into a HYROX, you could drop into an FX, you could do the CrossFit Open, or you could do whatever. It's just fitness and strength that happens to lend itself towards HYROX or whatever. It's just good all round fitness as far as I see it.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the comments just made me laugh. They're constantly constant.
That tickled me as well.
I do like that. That's really good. So Nigel, do you remember your time for your first HYROX?
Yes, it was 109.58.
Right. And we'll come back to the
The only relevance of that is because 70 minutes was considered by the YouTuber who I'd initially watched, who was doing it, and that was his goal. And I thought, I'll never get that because he's a lot faster and a lot better than me. And I remember I dipped under it and he didn't dip under it. So I just remember that 2 seconds counted for something, although I didn't realise what times were at that particular point. I was just glad to get it, but the 70 minutes stuck in my head.
Right. And do you remember what you found the most challenging part of that first HYROX was?
All of it. I
Just
couldn't
all
believe
shit.
how hard it was. I was in trauma from finishing to getting back to my hotel, which was probably about 400 meters. I had to sit down and sort of crawl my way there over about an hour. I could not believe what had happened. The pain and the discomfort, because I hadn't really trained for it. I hadn't done anywhere near the volume that I would now do. So it was just a shock to the system. And to be honest, that's probably not changed. I probably feel that at the end of every one. I always say never again, but yeah, certainly the first one was a shock. It was a shock.
What I love about HYROX is you can just go in. It's like you were the top like 13% of the running for your very first one, and that was you saying that you did no run training for it, and the whole run's like less than 37 minutes.
I didn't run any more than 4.5 miles was my longest run for that. I wasn't doing any more than 10 miles a week. So that makes you think, because if you were to watch Insta and whatever, you've got to run 50 miles a week to do a HYROX. You don't have to, but everyone's different and it all depends. But you don't have to.
So Nigel, I had a video call with Jon. Literally, he crossed the wall ball and then went across the line, grabbed his phone, and we had a video call. And all he looked like was Phil Mitchell.
That's me after Manchester, right there, just in the bins.
Oh, it was good. It was so good.
Yeah.
And you know, I do need to experience that that feeling at some point. Like I said, it's one of those things that I've just put off for the last few years. I've had friends do it. Obviously, Jon's a big advocate of HYROX. I coach people signing up and going for HYROXs, and I give them experience as a coach and as a PT. But in terms of actually having gone through it, I haven't. So I should probably bite the bullet. Jon did one in, was it Berlin last year? The air hanger one.
Nigel was in Berlin. You were in Berlin last year as well, weren't you? Yeah. So we were both in Berlin last year.
That was a good one.
Did you got a flag there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Nigel
I think I was second there. Yeah. And, it was very good. They seem to do these. I mean, the beauty of it is it's opened up a whole sort of like, you can travel to do these things, can't you? Where we had a lot of hours when we went to Paris. We're off to Warsaw coming up, Berlin, Madrid, Amsterdam, Vegas. It just gives you an excuse to go. And
what was
they seem to do some.
What was Vegas like? Because that was
Berlin was
probably the most
one,
like. Yeah, I was going to say that's like been the most like I would say you'd like star-studded, like HYROX event.
It was, yeah. It was very good. It was very good. It was. I wanted to experience. I don't know how we ended up in America. It was a bizarre kind of set of circumstances, but we just ended up going. Should we do Vegas? Yep. I wanted to experience it because everybody says, "Oh, you go to America and jet lag, and the Brits don't do well in America." I thought, "Oh, the sleds are heavier," and I was like, "I'll give it a go and see what happens with all this." And like you say, I didn't know who was on the start list, but everywhere you moved, there was CrossFitters tripping over them. Fraser Medeiros, everybody was there. So it was a bit like, it was very Vegas-y, the actual event, because it was full of famous people left, right, and centre. So it was a really good one. Yeah, really very, very different. But the same, the event's the same. But doing it in that location and the travel and experiencing the whole thing, the whole sort of week trip was really good. Yeah, really good. I recommend doing the foreign ones. Berlin was special as well, because they do that outdoor one. I think We're going Warsaw. Are you going Warsaw? That's supposed to be different. That's
No,
a
I'm
football
not.
stadium, I think. So that
Is it?
it might
Yeah,
be
that one
running
is.
around. Yeah, it's at the National Stadium or whatever. So it might be running on a track around the outside or something like that. But they seem to try and put on. I know they're going to do one in Australia that's at the Grand Prix track or at the same weekend as the Grand
Really?
Prix
Okay.
and finishing the pit lanes, doing your wall balls at the pit and stuff like that. Yeah, so
That's
they're
cool.
really going and selling it as an event. Yeah, they're fairly switched for all the criticism they get. They're fairly switched on, I think.
Do you know the criticism that they're receiving isn't any worse than any of the other, like with CrossFit events get? But it's because it's centralized and it's the actual event run by itself, isn't it? And the thing is, people always moan. You got to think the amount of people queuing for those tickets. It's got to be stemmed from all of that. Is like what do people moan about?
See, at the actual events, I don't think there's been anything to actually moan about.
No, very, very little. You hear the odd rumblings at one. I think Dublin the year before last was a bit poorly run, or they rely heavily on volunteers, don't they? That's the weak link, because if they start pissing off volunteers, then they're in trouble,
That's
aren't they? So that's the kind of weak link for them, because without them, they're knackered. So, but people complain they can't get tickets, or if they do introduce a ballot system, then they don't like the ballot system, and they don't like the system they bring in to negate the ballot system, and they don't like the fact they can't get a ticket because everybody's entitled to a ticket, and etc. etc. So, but it's all fitness, it's all fun, and there's plenty of events, isn't there?
I was going to say there's so many other events now popping up, like that you can go and do, and that's what you're saying. You're not specifically a HYROX coach; you coach people to be fit and just ready to do anything. That's like my coach. It's like ready for anything. You know, it's like he's coaching fitness. He's not coaching HYROX; he's coaching fitness.
Yeah, I do very little kind of HYROX-y stuff. Obviously, when I'm training people and we're learning movements, we're trying to get better at weak areas, we target those. But in general, a lot of it's just all-round fitness. So you can do anything with it, do what you want with it. Even people who aren't doing a HYROX or don't want to do a HYROX, I still have the same kind of, depending on what they like and what they don't like. The same principles apply, really. Aerobic stuff.
We've got
plenty of easy, some moderate, a bit hard.
Yeah, we've got a current crop on the island of athletes that are sort of getting to late 20s, 30s, early 30s, probably about 10 or 12 of them that are in athletics. So they're coming to the point where they're thinking of retiring from the sport and moving into something else. And I've been talking to them about HYROX, about, you know, the chance there and the opportunity to jump into another event, another sport where they can really throw everything they've got into it and do well, travel, feel that adrenaline, compete with other people. Age doesn't seem to be a drastic issue with HYROX, unlike other sports that they're involved with. I've got a crop of track runners, everyone from 200 up to 1500. Is there a specific type that you would think would excel better than others in HYROX? So is there another event that emulates that kind of fatigue? I know obviously it's a much longer time period. So we're looking at, an hour, let's say, as opposed to 3 or 4 minutes. Does it lend itself to the mid-distance people, or are you living proof that doesn't actually matter?
If you said to me you've got like some decent 1500 meter runners, 800 meter runners, 400 meter runners, even, I would say there's a fair chance they could do really well, because they will have that aerobic endurance and power and high kind of VO2 maxi type fitness. If they've done it alongside strength training as well, then it more to the good. And I wouldn't rule out sprinters either. It's yet to be determined. I mean, triathletes are dangerous, and are coming through to HYROX and starting to take over. But Yeah, I mean, someone you think of in the old days, like you think of a Josh. Yeah, you'd love to see someone like that have a go at it and see what they do. But
Yeah.
I'd say that would be ideal almost. Yeah.
Do you know? Funny enough, we've got you know, race walking, the one they look like they're mincing, like they pooed themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a lot of that on the island. Got a lot of it. And there's this one girl called Erica whose 10K is sub 40.
That's
So
fucking race walking, sub 40 10K.
Yeah.
And her heart rate doesn't go above like 120. Right.
Yeah.
So I said to her, if you just move a little bit faster, just put your knees up a little bit better, you could be really good at HYROX.
It's mental, eh?
Yeah, just the capacity of these people is just insane. And from a CrossFit perspective, and from a strength perspective, all we need to do is add in that to the mix, and they're pretty much ready made. That's all. That's the only reason why I asked about who you think, what type of athlete would be best prepared going into it if you just took one person and put them in. But yeah, that 800, 1500 probably makes the most sense because of that running capacity, I guess.
Yeah,
I know a lad.
A very high fitness level they will have. But yeah,
I know a lad that just they just won. Well, he won the first in age group, and then he won first overall in the doubles on like men's solos in Katowice. They got a 54-minute 14 seconds in the men's open doubles. And he's come in. It's only his third race, but he came in from being a half marathon runner. He's got a 1:12 half marathon, no 1:14 half marathon. And his first one he did was last year in Berlin, and he got 61 minutes. That was just a men's open, and he was like, I need to put on a little bit of size, but his run pace is like phenomenal. He's managed to hold it while gaining like about 10 kilos over the last kind of year. And now he's like,
wow,
now he's really flying. Yeah. Because he was just like, all he was a runner before, but now he's like actually like putting that work into strength and conditioning, and he's like holding that now.
Yeah, I've heard some people say that they'd rather someone come in who's got the strength because it's easy to teach them how to run. And I was like,
Teach them how to run, yeah.
That way at all. I think the biggest, if you come in with a massive aerobic base, you can get strong enough for a HYROX easier than you can get. Or certainly quicker than you could build your aerobic base. So I would always favour the lighter guy coming in.
If you're on the extreme end of that spectrum, either like if you go from pure strength to pure cardio, if you're on any of the extremes, you're fucked.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of it. You know, you have to meet somewhere in the middle. I would hazard a guess and probably say rather than dead center, you need to be more towards the aerobic purely because of the time span. But here's a good question from Sean.
This is a good question.
Do you ever take, or have you ever taken baking soda before a big race, Nigel?
Sean's wondering because that helps flush out lactic acid.
It's supposed to, yeah, I've heard the theory, but I've heard
also makes you shit yourself.
Yeah, that's the high risk. Yeah, so I've only just started messing with beta-alanine, which seems a bit safer. But no, I've never tried that. I've heard about it. Not worth the risk for me, so I've not done it. No.
That's a good transition into like what does nutrition look like to you as someone that's like, well, what 4 times age group qualifier for Worlds, 8 podium finishes. You've been training for like 40 plus years. What is your like nutrition like?
I eat a lot. I've never really tracked. I've always ate fairly clean. I've never had an issue with that. I'm quite happy not to have chocolate bars or cake or whatever. I can cut that out, no problem whatsoever. So I do eat clean, and I do eat plenty, high carbs. I don't even take protein shakes because I think I get enough protein. Protein's easy enough to get in. When I have tracked it briefly, protein didn't seem to be a problem, but I'm a big porridge in the morning after my workout. I have 2 energy bars or bars. Obviously, I'm training in the morning, so it's high carbs in and around training, before, during, and after. And then eat reasonably clean most of the time. So that's just the way I've always been, really.
Nigel, Heidi's asking, are you single? That's what she's asking there.
Now, I've watched other podcasts of yours, and she just asks everyone that. So I'm
Yeah.
not taking that as a compliment. Heidi,
So
calm down.
are you a big advocate of, like, obviously you coach other athletes now? Are you getting them having like intra carbs throughout their longer sessions, even like during like training? Do you get them to like simulate what they would do in training, like it's a race?
It depends what for. I've got several going for a half marathon, and that's been a focus in recent times. Do long runs as you will do on the day. I'm not a nutritionist, so I go with common sense.
It's all right. You can just tell people on the internet you are.
Yeah, no, I just go, just like give them a macro calculator and go off that. So I just give common sense and my kind of experiences to what I do and how I think about it. And the big one for me is, personally, I like to get something in me as soon as I finish training, whether it's protein and a bit of carbs. If you can't get a full meal in, that's the big one for me, because it's all about recovery, isn't it? And that is what I notice has a big effect. If I don't eat or get food in after I train, then there can be this big dip, and it takes longer to get out of. Whereas your body's, in my mind, it's craving the nutrients and the energy after you've depleted, and that's the best time to get it in. I know that it's a bit disputed, but that's what I find personally. And I don't go with fasted at all. Quite the opposite. So I'm keen on fueling yourself for what you need to do, and if you feel that that's not working, eat more. Don't eat less, and be very careful if you're. I mean, some people, you do need to cut your weight, but be very careful, depending on the volume you're doing, as to how much you cut, and it doesn't affect your performance, because you fuel for performance, basically.
Nigel, how tall and how heavy are you?
I'm 5'11", I think. So that's 180 and 76 kilos, 76.
Okay.
Right.
Jake's trying to see if he's sizing you up for a fight, Nigel. That's what he's doing.
No way.
He's like, oh, I'll press this guy overhead.
Do you know what? I had this exact not this exact conversation, but I had a conversation earlier. I've got both my kids doing jiu-jitsu at 5 and 7, and someone said to me, "Why don't you do it?" And I was like, "Do you know what? Like the primary reason, one of them for my kids, is just self-defense. I want them to be able to handle themselves, have confidence with altercation, to calm their emotions, to be able to, think under crisis, and to be able to, handle themselves. If anyone ever comes up to me and wants to fight me or have my wallet, I'm at the point now, I'm 40 in 2 weeks. I'll just give them my wallet. I just go, here you go, mate, have my wallet. I don't care anymore. I'm done. I'm not running away. I'm not fighting you. Just take what you want. Like, you can have my shirt if you like. Yeah, old man. Yeah.
There we go.
But yeah. Have you ever done any combat sports, Nigel, other than rugby?
Which is pretty much a combat sport.
No, one. Well, yeah, rugby league is one. That's one thing I would redo again. I would definitely do probably boxing, because I've always fancied. I always wished that was in me growing up. I wish I'd done something. Jiu-jitsu type thing is very popular now, isn't it? It wasn't back then. I wish I'd done something, and it probably would have been boxing, because I think I would have liked the discipline and I don't know, something about boxing I quite enjoy. Yeah, that's the one regret. I think it's great training. It's great for.
What did you say? What did you say your injuries were, Nigel? That you kind of managing?
Running ones, wasn't it?
I've got a heel kind of foot related injuries from, I presume, from the impact of running. I have bony spurs on my foot, which you can't really resolve. I've sort of got to put
on you spurs.
So, yeah. Bony spurs, come on you spurs. But yeah, so I've got a bit of that. So running's a bit. It's never completely pain free, but I want to compete. I'm going to have to either put up with it or not, but it's not getting any worse. So I'll keep going for as long as I can, and then I'll just stop running.
Right. Now I've got a question about HYROX, the future of it.
There we go.
Oh yeah.
So, as an event, one of the initial criticisms, I don't really hear it anymore, is boring or it's the same thing every time. You're looking at it wrong. Like the 100-meter sprint has always been a 100-meter sprint. The marathon's 26.2. A row is always 2K. Like these events have to be static in nature in order to see progress. With HYROX, although I can't see the actual event changing itself in terms of metrics, like you said earlier, I think the setting, the environment, the fact that you've got stadiums being involved, aircraft hangars, you've got the presentations changing. Can you see HYROX, the company, branching out and having something slightly different as an alternative to the event? Is there scope for something a little bit different to what they do, owned by HYROX, for people that don't want to run, perhaps?
I believe that they're adamant. HYROX have long-term, sort of 10-year, slightly longer maybe, ambitions to get functional fitness into the Olympics, and that stems from one of the owners being Olympian, and he says that will definitely happen. Now,
I'm pretty sure he said that.
HYROX is obviously. He thinks HYROX will be some sort of qualifier for that, or possibly something along those lines. But they're adamant, and that's predominantly why they think they're going to stick with that. And I think they've declared that pretty much from the start. They have left it open for, they might still franchise for people to do half HYROXs or slightly different events. But they're pretty set on, this is it. The same as every athletic event, every Olympic event, it's the same every year, and that's it. That's the way we're going to get it. Get it moving forward.
That is kind of like,
that's
that would be quite cool to see, almost like this, like the scaled version. Like someone could enter the open, but do a half HYROX, do like the half the run, 500-meter runs instead of the 1Ks, and kind of like have that as your like barrier to entry.
Yeah. And whether they can let affiliates do smaller events. I know they've got the, what's it called, the PFT and stuff, or whether they can franchise some of that out, or rent some of that out, or do something like that, or kids versions and stuff are being mentioned. But I'm sure they'll have a clear plan. But I'm pretty sure this is us. We want to get properly established as this is it. This is what it is. Because they used to do ruck and stuff, didn't they? Or the backpacks and.
Well, that's still going.
Is that America? Is it, or it was, or is that all around?
There's a CrossFit gym in Aberdeen. Carl Steadman's actually the coach there, and they're GORAC partners now, so they do GORAC events even up here now.
Okay.
Yeah. Come back to what Jake was saying, but it's even getting like, it's evolving now to the point where, yes, the events are getting bigger. Like they're better, venues. It's more like visually appealing. But now the Elite 15 are actually closing in on, like, whereas Hunter was just, he seemed untouchable. Whereas now he's been beaten at Worlds. There was him beaten in Vegas, and it's like the gap is closing on what is possible, and it's like everyone's getting faster. It's not just him getting faster. It's like everyone's getting faster. So like, that's just 2 events there in the last 6 months that have been like really exciting for the people that are interested in the sport. For some people that probably don't care, they're probably it's still boring. But for the people that are interested in it, those are really like exciting events, and you're just going to get more and more as the level keeps elevating. It's like that. Go back to your 100-meter sprint. I think that's exciting.
And I think you get to know the sort of individuals involved, don't you? And people like Hunter are so good for the sport because they're big personalities, aren't they? And they sell the sport themselves, don't they? And it gets more interesting. There's going to be people coming from other sports really hitting it hard as well. Your CrossFitters are going to take it. She's going to shake up the female side of things.
I think so.
There's a lot more mileage left in the sort of like the elite sort of spectator thing. and
Mhm.
it's slightly more relatable because the day after you're doing the same event. So
Yeah.
I think it's got I think they're relying on people, because I've seen people burn out in the time that I've been doing it and stop doing it. But there's so many people just starting the journey, and then some will drop off at the other end, and then others will come in and start doing it again. A bit like triathlon and Ironman and stuff. It still keeps going. There's just different people finding it at different times, and youngsters will start coming through and they'll be doing it. So I think it's got. I mean, nothing lasts forever, but I think it's got plenty more mileage in it yet. Till it even peaks. Never mind, starts to drop off.
Yeah. So talking about next steps, Nigel, what's next for you? So your next race, did you say you're in Warsaw next?
Yeah.
No, I'm in Glasgow, which
Of course.
is 2 weeks Thursday. So I'm in a new age category now. So I'm giving it one last shot at the solos, and I'll try and qualify for Chicago. At Glasgow, qualified in doubles at the start of the season, but I didn't take that up. But I'll try and get there as individual, and then to Chicago in June, and that'll be the end of the season, and then reassess then. But yeah, I've got Glasgow, Warsaw, and hopefully Chicago.
Nigel told me he was retiring last year.
I say that
Now,
every
now
year.
he's aged up. He's like,
never-
oh, I've got this. Like,
If I'm to give it one go, it's when you go up in age group. That's your best time. It's shit or bust this year, basically. It is. The next 4 months is all or nothing.
So Nigel, can you see a place in your future where you retire from competing in HYROX, but doing one every year just to keep a marker on yourself and keep fit, or would it be done and done?
I don't know. Watch this space. I do literally say I'm retiring virtually after every race, but I don't know. I don't like the idea of getting older. I don't like the idea of being slow. It's bad enough at the moment, but I'm still just about hold my head up and not look daft out there. I don't know if I'll keep going when I start slowing down, and whether it'll still have the same effect. I don't know. I would like to think I would still do it and enjoy it, and doubles is always an option as well, and keep going. But I don't know. It depends on the injuries as well. But I would like to think I would just drop the competitive head and do it for what it's intended to be, which is good health and fitness and a bit of a community thing and a bit of a enjoyable thing. But we'll wait and see.
Awesome.
your Vegas doubles time was really good, though. And I imagine that was in a busy event.
It was decently pleased with it, because it was pro doubles. I dropped down because the lad I did it with, I coached him. It was his first ever HYROX, so pro doubles was a big ask of him. We really enjoyed it, and it went really well. I loved it out there. Loved the competing. Loved doing it together. Loved the doubles, which is probably more popular than the solo, isn't it? And I can see why, because it's just a better experience in a lot of ways. And we did all right. Yeah, we did all right.
Do you find doubles more intense than doing a singles?
It's very different. There's moments when you're really in the red and on the edge, and then you get a quick chance to regroup, and then you go again. So whereas solo is kind of like a longer, drawn out slog of an event. This is like very much more interval training, and it's certainly no easier doubles. It's different, and it's nice to have someone. It's nice to have someone who can save you if you do get in trouble. But it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. And there's normally one of you that's the slower runner who's having to go in the red on the runs, and the other one's having to go in the red on the station. So you're
I experienced
in the red
this time last year.
Yeah,
I ran with my coach this time last year,
horrible.
and I experienced that. And he was like trying to get me to run like 25 seconds faster on each lap, than what I would run if I was just doing it by myself. And I was like, mate, I can't hold that. He's like, you can, because I'll let you rest in the stations. And my heart rate was getting up to like 200 on the Garmin, and then I was like getting it down to like maybe like 160 in the station. Then I was just like, boop, straight back up again. And it was just, I found that way harder, and I did probably less work than what I did like just doing solos.
You know, one of the funniest video I saw recently, you've probably seen it 1,000 times, but there was, I think it was like a married couple, and she may have been pregnant, I think.
Yeah,
and
she was. I know what you're talking about.
The dude just goes, here, I'm going to do all the burpees. And he goes fucking nuts. And he plows through the burpees. And she's waiting there. And they go to run. And he is utterly fucked. He's on the floor, like half chucking up, because he's just giving it. He's giving it Johnny Concrete. And now he's paying the price. You've got this pregnant woman just stood there. She's like 7 months pregnant, going, come on.
Waiting for him. Yeah.
Good.
I was going to say, obviously now you do, well, I know you're retired, but you've got quite the crop of clients. I joked with you this morning saying there's not a time when I don't go in the gym and see like one of your t-shirts or hoodies in the gym. How have you like found like transitioning from, because I know that you're not a big technology guy. How have you found going from being in law enforcement to being retired to like now becoming an online coach?
Surprisingly, I love it. Basically, I sort of I never had no intention of doing it. I was happily retired, and people started coming to me, and I've had a few people for a few years that I've just been helping with a marathon or with general training. I was doing it for nothing, just as a hobby and as a side.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to really enjoy it, and then word of mouth, and then other people started coming, and then it just snowballed. And then obviously when people started getting into HYROX, and I'd already been involved in HYROX, it just escalated again. And I then we had quite a few go to Glasgow last year, which I suppose was the first real test of it. And I love being involved in everyone else's journey far more than I enjoy my own competing. For good, for bad, for the highs and lows that you get. I've got such a good group that I just buy into them all. And we went to Glasgow, a big test for me because I was putting my neck on the line a bit, and they absolutely smashed it out of the park. Pretty much all of them were non-runners, first-timers, and they all finished top 20%, top 15%, top 13%. And I thought, that'll be that. A big success. Everyone will go on there, but everyone just went HYROX mad.
Yeah.
Started booking things left, right, and centre.
I was going to say, everyone just wants more, don't they?
Yeah, no one left, and about 3 times the amount of people sort of joined me. So I then thought, if I'm going to do it, I'm either all or nothing. I'm going all in. So I've gone all in, and it brings me. It's an emotional journey, and you buy into everyone's stories, and you know yourselves. You get every sort of like human life story and human interaction. I just love it. I think people thought I'd be old school, just get on with it, no excuses, a hard taskmaster, and a bit like wary of coming to me. But I actually find myself, being the other way almost. I just really, really, really enjoy it. So it's snowballed, and I'm now all in. So yeah, I really, really like it. Can't speak highly enough of it. I have far more interest in that than my own. I take my own training seriously still, and I'm still testing stuff and trying stuff out for them. But I'm far more. My heart rate was higher on day 2 at Paris when I was watching than it was on day 1 when I was competing. That kind of sums it up.
Yeah. I had a client competing in a powerlifting competition today, and like I was probably more anxious than anyone in that room today. Just like because you're so heavily invested in that person's progress and their journey that if they don't do well, it's like, oh, that's like that's on me type. Like you feel like you're responsible for absolutely everything.
Yeah. I had a young lad.
I had a good day. I was like, oh, buzzing.
I had a young lad 3 weeks ago do his first officially sanctioned powerlifting competition. But it wasn't just his first powerlifting competition. He's a 15-year-old. It is his first ever sports competition ever. And I'd been training him for about a year and a half. And about 6 months ago, he hit squat depth for the first time. So his carrot there was, once you've hit in squat depth and you're managing to hit it every time, we will book you in for your first comp. So we booked it in. As a 15-year-old lad, quite shy, quite introvert, to pop on a singlet in front of a whole room full of people with no music and try and lift heavy stuff as your first ever sports event. My heart rate was absolutely through the roof. And because obviously you open with the squat, and that was his one that could have gone either way.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, the elation when he hit that depth, stood up, got 3 white lights. It was just, it beat any feeling that I've ever had from my own like sport at all. It was insane. But obviously slightly different in terms of environment, but I can imagine that was for about 10 seconds. I can't imagine having to do that for the best part of an hour and 20 minutes or whatever it would have been.
It's worse when you're not there and you're having to refresh the screen and follow them through every station, and it's like, you know what's coming next. You're like, oh, this goes well. Oh, they've got through that. Next run should be this. And then, it's brutal. The race weekends are horrific.
But now they've
they've
changed the time chips now, isn't they? So you can't even, or they sorted it, because I remember Manchester, you couldn't actually refresh and watch people live, like on their time chip.
They buzzed out, didn't they? And
mm-hmm.
They've gone back to the old system now because they're trying to do it in house, and they cooked it all up, didn't they? Because that was the one good thing about a HYROX. You get all the splits and you can follow it live time and you can see it at the end. But all that went out the window when they cooked it up. But yeah, it's brutal watching others.
So that'd be like you, Jake.
And it doesn't always go well, does it?
No, it doesn't.
As I say, it doesn't always go well, and then you feel it.
But that's when the true coaches show themselves. When shit doesn't go right, accept how you're feeling, regroup, evaluate, learn, put together a plan, execute. That's when the coach has to show themselves.
My client today, she PB'd her squat, and she's been hitting consistent, like this weight that we were aiming for to hit in competition, and she missed it on her last bench. She hurt her shoulder back during one of the squats, and then I was like, right, we're still going to go for it, and she missed it, and she's quite an emotional lifter. She came through, but we had about an hour between bench finishing, deadlift start, and I was like, you've got 10 minutes to sulk. I was like, but after that, like it's done. I was like, like take 10 minutes, like feel the emotions now. I was like, and then forget about it, because you've still got to go out there and PB. And then she just pulled it out of the bag, and she ended up putting on 27.5 kilos on her like comp total today, which was class. Like she got a huge finish. She like 17.5 kilos on her deadlift total from last comp, which like total topped off the day. And in true Emma fashion, I hope you're watching this, she was happy for about 3 seconds. She just came through and said, we should have went heavier in that last deadlift. And I was like, fucking, you were just absolutely elated 2 seconds ago.
That's good. Very good. Nigel, have you got any kids at all?
No. Thankfully. That's why I'm retired.
Probably a good shout. Yeah. Good. No, I was just going to say there's parallels somewhere along the line there between parenting and coaching. I've definitely found that I've become more of an empathetic coach since I've had kids.
Yeah, it would make sense. Yeah. Very similar, I'd imagine.
Do you think your time in the police force, because I know you said, like you mentioned you were a detective, do you think like being in like a leadership and like a leadership role in the police and like experiences from that have influenced like how you coach and like mentor people, like through like whether it's like discipline, mindset, like resilience? Like do you think there's any kind of correlations with like just your career, or is that just the way you are as a person anyway?
Well, we're shaped by everything we do, so it probably is part of it. I think in general, life experience counts when you're dealing with people, doesn't it? The more people you've dealt with and the more experience you've got of dealing with people in any situation helps with coaching in general. So I would say it's an advantage. It might not be directly relevant, but it certainly must help with people's and not making what's the saying? Making a mountain out of a molehill. Keeping calm in a crisis, and having a sort of an all-round view of, look, at the end of the day, it's just exercise. Let's not get too worked up when we're on that start line. And nobody's died here. Literally, nobody's died. We can do this. So I think it helps. Yeah, generally, I think being an older coach might help me in certain ways, and being a young coach might help a young coach in other ways. So I use that kind of experience to my advantage. I think, I can't do any harm.
Nigel,
I think the discipline side of it, and I've always had that. I never miss a session myself, and since I am coaching others, there's the whole debate as, do you need to do a HYROX to train people for HYROX? Do you need to do whatever to train people? I don't really care. For me, I want to do it, and I want to do it, keep doing it as best I can, because I'm out there representing my own philosophy and my own training. So there's extra pressure on me. I'm not going to turn up to an event having missed training. I can't tell people to do the training if I'm not doing it. I can't tell people to be in shape if I'm not in shape. I can't tell people to execute and perform on the day if I'm not doing it. So I'm trying to be the flagship leader on that score as well. The bigger pressure there. But I'm not going to put myself on the start line unprepared, because I just wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't put one of my athletes out there unprepared either. So
you're there, North Star, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it brings it home when you see people going to Frankfurt or Paris and they're wearing stuff with my name on. We're a team, and I'm captain of that team. And it's like, if we're going out to play rugby or whatever, we're going to the back and we're all in it together. So I do feel a bit like that. But yeah, the discipline and motivation is heightened because of that. But I've always, I don't miss sessions, and I don't half-hour sessions. So it's never really been a problem. I hope I set an example and people see me doing it, and it might help them do it as well. But that's probably not police-rated. That's just in me, I think.
And Nigel, do you do a lot of your training in person? Do you do any online stuff with any remote clients?
It's all online, albeit most are local. And for example, next weekend we're having a meetup for some that can attend that are up here. So at the moment it's online, albeit I know and have met most of the people I deal with. So it's online. Yeah.
So if anyone watching this wanted to get in contact about having you come on, have you got space for new clients at the moment?
Yeah, I'm pretty much near max capacity, but I'll always find space for the right person. If I get on with you and I think I can help, I will always go out of my way to help. Yeah.
Brilliant.
This is Nigel's Instagram for anyone that watches it. Levett Fitness.
Yeah, that sounds right.
There we go.
Give Nigel a follow.
You can see them.
I need a social media manager as well, if anyone's willing to do that for nothing.
If you find one, we'll have them as well. Good.
I'm getting a little bit better at social media, I must say, but
yeah. Good. Right, Nigel, I know we've taken up nearly 90 minutes of your time, so I'm going to wrap this up. But thank you so much for coming on. It's been lovely kind of meeting you and hearing about what you've achieved, your life story, and what you've got planned. It's we need to hear about more people like yourself that have kind of had a life already previous to sport and then taking it up upon, because there's so many people out there that need to be told that kind of thing, that there's so much more out there than that, than they're letting on, and there's so much more that they can be doing, and just to move and get in contact.
Yep, thanks for having me. Good chat, lads.
No, that was class, Nigel. Thank you very much. We're going to end the stream, so if you just hang on for 2 seconds. Right, guys. Cheers. There we go.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, there we go.